because the FBI have accidentally, it seems, developed a system which works rather well. And the system is they make up a terrorist plot, they find someone to try and carry it out, and they arrest them for doing that.
And then get the kudos for having fought the Great War against terrorism.
Well, they get all sorts of things, really. I mean, it's quite complicated, but I guess the essential element of our story is that these people are not terrorists, but the government ends up putting them in jail
for very long
as if they
terms.
were. Yes, 25, 30 years. And there's a close to 100% conviction rate in these cases. And I wasn't looking for this. I wasn't aware of this. I mean, I think we all sort of have a vague idea that the FBI may be involved in setting people up. But then when you follow the story that I did and you see it close up, it's jaw-dropping.
It's really shocking and very, very hard to believe. And yet the statistics, once you lay them out, are quite extraordinary. I mean, we're talking about 100 incidents of the FBI doing this, 100 known incidents.
More, actually, more. Yes, I mean, I say it's based on 100 true stories. That's
Yeah.
a sort of notional 100. It's in the right ballpark. It's more likely 300.
What happens when a UK comedian goes on national TV to promote his movie and ends up exposing the US government's darkest secrets? In the process of making a comedy, he then discovers jaw-dropping evidence the US has fabricated terrorist plots on its own soil, then framed innocent citizens, locking them away for decades. So my question is, if this is what they're willing to do to their own people, what do you think they're willing to do in Africa? In this video, I break down this sinister playbook and show how the exact same tactics are being used to exploit and manipulate, control and destabilize the African continent. For those of you that don't know me, you're very welcome here. My name is TJ, I'm Nigerian and British mixed, and on this channel, we talk about African geopolitics. So the comedian in this case is Chris Morris, and what he stumbled on while researching his film, The Day Shall Come, should terrify every person who values truth and justice. Morris admits he wasn't looking for this information, saying, and I quote, "When you follow the story and you see it close up, it's jaw-dropping. It's really shocking and very, very hard to believe," end quote. Morris discovered that the, quote, biggest recruiter of terrorists in the States is the FBI. The scale is staggering, according to Morris. 300 times the FBI have managed to pin a crime on essentially innocent people. And their method, quote, "You look at the brown and black people because they are more likely, you think, to be a problem. And you surround them with false friends, informants, who will offer money and friendship to try and lure them along a sort of carefully scripted program of self-incrimination." Now, here's the question that should terrify every African watching this. If they're willing to do this to their own citizens at home, what exactly are they doing on the continent? The same intelligence apparatus that manufactures terrorist threats in American cities is running operations across Africa through AFRICOM. I've covered AFRICOM extensively on this channel, and there is one popular aspect of their operations that reveals just how sophisticated this manipulation really is. AFRICOM likes to claim they only intervene when African countries specifically request their help. They never present themselves as invaders, but as reluctant heroes responding to the distress calls of African countries.
When I sit down with MODs, chiefs of defense or presidents, I learn from them. I learn from them. They tell me what their approach is to terrorism. And I figure out, and they tell me how AFRICOM can help.
For me, this is quite sinister, especially when you consider the Morris formula, which is basically manufacturing a crisis. You then wait for that very government you've destabilized to come begging for assistance. This gives you perfect diplomatic cover and completely inverts the power dynamic. Africa then become eternally cast as the needy supplicant, rather than the true identity, which is the richest continent being systematically looted. The victim ends up being thankful to the victimizer. Let me show you exactly how this works. Through programs like USAID and CIA operations, the United States funded groups to participate in the overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya in 2011. British Parliament later admitted they failed to identify that the rebels included a significant Islamic element. Among those supported was Abul Hakim Belhaj, leader of the US terrorist designated Libyan Islamic Fighting Group. But here's what happens after the objectives are completed. That group still exists. After Gaddafi's fall, hundreds of his Tuareg fighters returned to Mali with sophisticated weapons. This massive influx of arms led directly to the formation of JNIM, now the fastest growing terrorist organization in the world and the most heavily armed militant group in the Sahel region of Africa. The key figure is Lial al-Ghali, who formed Ansar Dine in 2011, the same year as the Libya intervention. His organization became one of the founding groups of JNIM. The weapons and fighters from Libya provided the catalyst for transforming local grievances into regional terrorist network that now operates across Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. The same region that ex-AFRICOM leader Michael Langley claims is now the epicenter of terrorism in the world.
Burkina Faso, a lot of great things going on to progress them forward, okay? But then when you look at the military part of it, knowing that that's the epicenter of global terrorism.
And the same pattern was created with ISIS. Through the CIA's Timber Sycamore program, the United States spent billions arming Syrian rebels. A 2017 study analyzing over 40,000 weapons found that US-supplied arms repeatedly ended up in ISIS hands, sometimes within just 2 months of leaving the factory. A 2012 Defense Intelligence Agency memo shows US officials knew the Salafist, the Muslim Brotherhood, and Al-Qaeda are the major forces driving the insurgency, but continued anyway. ISIS would then spread to Africa, establishing affiliates across the continent. The connection always leads back to some source. American weapons, training, and funding originally provided for other objectives that then proliferate beyond control. Today we see this formula playing out again, but with a new twist. The military governments of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have kicked out French forces, formed the Alliance of Sahel States, and are pursuing genuine sovereignty under leaders like Ibrahim Traoré. They're building African solutions to African problems and challenging Western control. Suddenly, those same terrorist groups that emerged from the Libya intervention become useful again. Africa's military spending hit $52.1 billion in 2024, largely because these nations faced increasing attacks from groups just like JNIM. In Niger alone, extreme violence jumped almost 60% in 2024, despite or perhaps because of the country's move towards sovereignty. The United States operates 29 known military bases across Africa, with AFRICOM conducting 315 drone strikes in Somalia alone since 2023. Yet terrorist activity continues expanding. Militant Islamist groups in Africa increased by 400% between 2010 and 2024, jumping up from 5 to 25 organizations during the period of expanded Western military intervention. So the claim is that this isn't just failure, this is the Morris formula in action. Create the problem, then provide the solution that serves your interests. The groups originally supported to overthrow Gaddafi now serve to pressure the very African governments seeking independence from Western controls. Recent evidence shows this isn't a coincidence. USAID has been documented sending money that ends up with terrorist organizations. The Middle East Forum published a study showing USAID awarded $164 million to radical organizations, including $122 million to groups aligned with designated terrorists. In one case, the Syrian national was charged with diverting over $9 million in USAID humanitarian aid directly to Al-Qaeda's Syrian affiliate. The pattern becomes clear when you follow the resources and timing. Every time African leaders choose sovereignty over dependency, terrorist activity mysteriously increases in their region. Every time a government challenges Western economic interests, security crises emerge, requiring international intervention. The statistics are damning. In the Sahel, where military governments have expelled Western forces and are building continental partnerships, fatalities linked to militant groups have tripled since 2020. Mali's defense budget grew 38% between 2020 and 2024, Burkina Faso's military spending soared 108% from 2021 to 2024. These nations are spending more on security because they understand something crucial about the Morris model. But the good news is that African leaders seem to be waking up to this manipulation. The alliance of Sahel states themselves, more than military cooperation. It's a rejection of the manufactured crisis model, where 95% of West Africans express desire to leave systems of monetary control. When continental organizations like the African Continental Free Trade Area advance integration, when leaders openly cite foreign manipulation as justification for policy change, we see consciousness emerging. The Morris formula works by preying on desperation and division. It promises solutions while creating the problem it claims to solve. But knowledge for this formula is our vaccination against its effects. Understanding that the same apparatus manufacturing terrorists in America is operating across Africa helps us see through the humanitarian justifications of permanent intervention. African unity isn't just an ideal, it is absolutely necessary for its survival. Every time we choose continental cooperation over foreign dependency, every time we build African institutions instead of relying on external partners, every time we prioritize African solutions to African challenges, we break the Morris model's power over our continent. The cycle continues because it's profitable and effective. Groups useful for overthrowing Gaddafi become useful for pursuing Traore. Weapons provided for one objective get recycled for the next. Crisis creation becomes crisis management, which becomes permanent control. But the cycle can be broken. African sovereignty isn't just possible, it's inevitable once we stop allowing others to manufacture our problems and start building our own solutions. The question isn't whether the Morris model operates in Africa. The evidence is overwhelming that it does. The question is what we do with this knowledge. Do we continue accepting managed instability and permanent dependency? Or do we choose the harder path of truth and independence? The choice will define Africa's future for generations to come. I would love to know what you guys think about this out there. Please feel free to put your thoughts in the comments section. But if you have nothing to say, would it be too much for you to write the words continental cooperation in the comments section? It just lets me know that you watched the video to the end, you like the channel, and you want me to continue.